Dharmesh is an insanely smart person and a very big thinker who can actually build the stuff he envisions. I would not bet against Dharmesh. As someone who has invested heavily in HubSpot through the years, I am very happy to know that Dharmesh is very focused on AI in HubSpot. I think it will bode very well for the platform and the stock moving forward. Welcome to the Marketing AI Show, the podcast that helps your business grow smarter by making artificial intelligence approachable and actionable. You'll hear from top authors, entrepreneurs, researchers, and executives as they share case studies, strategies, and technologies that have the power to transform your business and your career. My name is Paul Raitzer. I'm the founder of Marketing AI Institute, and I'm your host. Welcome to episode 37 of the Marketing AI Show. We have a lot to cover today. We had to bump some topics like last minute. There's so much going on. So I am your host, Paul Raitzer, along with my co-host, as always, Mike Kaput. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Paul. I feel like every podcast, like I've aged another year because it feels like things are moving so fast.
I felt like the end of last week like slowed down a little. Like everybody apparently was waiting till Monday morning to drop some stuff on us. Which is great. I mean, I'm glad we do this. So if you're new to the show, we record this on Monday mornings. So today is Monday, March 6th. This will release on Tuesday, March 7th. And some of the things we say today may be out of date by the time this hits tomorrow. Who knows? So today's episode is brought to you by the AI for Writers Summit. It's aiwritersummit.com. This is a virtual event that we're launching that's happening on March 30th this year. So just in a couple weeks now. It's a free event. There's a free option at least. And as you're going to discover in today's session, there's a lot happening in the world of AI writing and language AI and ChatGPT and all these other language models and applications. And the reality is nobody has a clue what's happening. And so we thought, let's create a summit and bring some people together and let's talk about this. What's the impact on you as a writer or a marketer or a business person or a technologist who's building tools? Whatever your role may be, what is going on? What does it mean to us? How is it going to impact careers and talent and companies and marketing strategies? And so it's a half-day virtual summit on the 30th from 12 to 4 Eastern. We have a collection of amazing topics talking about what's going on today, state of. We're going to take a look at the future and figure out where do we think this is going to go, over the next 6 to 12 months. I don't think it's realistic for anyone to try and predict beyond 6 months at this point. Sometimes I think 6 days is hard to predict, but lots happening. So again, AI for Writers Summit. It is brought to you by Marketing AI Institute, where Mike and I are both employed. Marketing AI Institute is the creator of the event as well as this podcast. So check that out. Again, there's a free registration option, aiwritersummit.com. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike. Again, if you're new, Mike and I pick 3 topics each week, and then we have a little rapid fire session at the end. The 3 topics today changed about 30 minutes ago, thanks to our friend Dharmesh Shah at HubSpot. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike to talk to us about what's going on.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, and this first topic is so hot off the presses that I think it's still warm, honestly. Like I can feel the heat coming off the Google Doc here. So literally just this morning, HubSpot co-founder and CTO Dharmesh Shah released something called ChatSpot, which is an AI tool that combines the power of ChatGPT, image generation AI, and HubSpot's CRM and CMS platform. So this tool lets you actually ask questions of your HubSpot portal and provide instructions in natural language through a chat interface. So it's almost like think ChatGPT for your specific HubSpot instance. For example, you could use ChatSpot to do things like give you a summary of data in your portal, create a report of companies that were added last quarter, summarized by country, or generate an image of an orange rocket ship. For any of our audience members who don't know, there's some really important context here. Not only is HubSpot a leading marketing platform, but Paul actually founded and sold a marketing agency that I also used to work for that was HubSpot's first ever agency partner. So we followed HubSpot closely, very closely since its very early days and have a lot of relationships at the company. On the heels of this announcement, HubSpot also introduced, kind of with less fanfare, a GPT-powered content assistant that generates content in the platform. So we've alluded to this feature that we would have loved to have this feature for a while in HubSpot. And it looks like they have now incorporated it. So, Paul, I want to turn this over to you to just unpack your thoughts for us on this release, on ChatSpot, on HubSpot at large, and their play in AI, and what this all means for marketers.
Yeah, so as you alluded to, I have a long history with HubSpot. We started working with them back in 2007. Dharmesh wrote the forward for my second book in 2014, which is the first time I publicly talked about artificial intelligence. In that book, I theorized something called a marketing intelligence engine that would use CRM data and automation system data to build predictive models for strategy and budget allocation. And it was sort of like the reason I got into AI was this use case of an intelligence engine. I was about a decade ahead of my time, apparently, because it wasn't not only possible, but no one was working on it back then. Um, so that being said, I have had many conversations about artificial intelligence with Dharmesh in particular, and with people at HubSpot through the years. And at times, I've honestly been a little hard on HubSpot in recent years about the lack of AI in their platform. When I saw that there was a massive opportunity for them to be building it with all the proprietary data and everything, and so I think that we have to give kudos where it's due. I mean, what he showed it was like a 19-minute demo where Dharmesh kind of walks through it. One, I love that it's Dharmesh doing it. Like, I always say the companies that you want to bet on are the ones where the leadership are out with a point of view on AI. There's still so few SaaS companies where the C-suite don't even have a public point of view on AI. They're not talking about it. And here we have Dharmesh actually not only building this with his team, but he's out in front as the face of what they're doing. And obviously, Dharmesh has invested a lot of time and energy in figuring out where HubSpot might be going in this area. And so, I think it's awesome. And I had seen some of this. I had a sense of kind of like some of the stuff that Dharmesh was working on, but I hadn't seen what he showed today in terms of the full capabilities of this. So I was really excited to see it. And I love the practicality of the use cases. He showed some sales CRM use cases. He showed some marketing use cases. He showed some reporting use cases. So you can't, as a HubSpot customer or marketer, watch that and not realize the impact AI is going to have on you. I also thought it was interesting because it sort of brought home the world of bits stuff that you and I talked about on episode 35 of the Marketing AI Show. So if you listened to episode 35, we sort of put out this world of bits idea that, really where people were going was action transformers, where the AI would be able to take actions on your behalf, not just, create things, but, you know, the example we used in the post was a 21 click sequence to send an email in HubSpot. So like today, if you wanted to send an email in HubSpot, you have to click at least 21 times to do it. And Dharmesh actually referenced that kind of example within what they're building with ChatSpot, where it reduces the need for all these clicks. So it's sort of like a lot of this stuff coming together simultaneously. And I think it's really exciting, in terms of the impact it could have on customers and the impact it could have on the broader market.
So I think it's also important to layer in a little context here, given that, we both spend most of our days in HubSpot. We're very familiar with the partner ecosystem and the services agencies offer around HubSpot. I wouldn't sleep on how powerful this idea is. There is still a lot of manual work that goes into actually executing anything in HubSpot, not to mention, as anyone who struggles sometimes to get value out of their CRM knows, it's not always easy to get at all the data that we have in there. I mean, how many times over the past, 15 years have we sometimes struggled to say, hey, like, how do we pull a report on this data set? How do we get more value out of the data we're collecting on contacts? So all of these things for people that aren't as familiar with HubSpot, these are all really transformative. So how do you see this? What does this mean for the wider market that HubSpot is now integrating AI into its platform like this?
The To start, this sort of tease up what we're going to talk about in our second topic. But basically, I think it's going to create a lot of confusion.
Hmm.
So if you have been an early adopter of AI technology and you've been adding different applications, different third party writing tools, different intelligent automation tools, once this moves out of alpha, Dharmesh is very clear it's an alpha launch, so it's very early, but it's going to get better fast, for a lot of different reasons. And so I think you immediately are like, well, do we need the other writing tools? Like, what does this replace the need to have a third party writing tool? And I actually don't know the answer to this. I'm just posing this as soon as I saw it, that was my immediate reaction was people are going to be very confused. And we're already dealing with an undereducated industry at large.
Mm,
So generally speaking, people are buying AI technology that they don't understand. They're finding some basic use cases that they do understand. So, okay, it can help me write blog posts, it can help me do social media shares, it can help me write ads or whatever it is. So they understand the use case, but they don't understand the underlying technology. So they certainly can't step back and understand, do I need this in HubSpot and these other third party tools, or is this just it? Because they might not even understand language models and how the APIs work and all this different stuff. So I think that there is going to be some confusion. There's going to be a greater need for education. On the positive side, I think HubSpot jumping in to AI in a bigger way helps accelerate that, the understanding and adoption, because now that it's baked in, and again, it wasn't like HubSpot didn't have some AI tools, but realistically, and again, this I was referring to, I've been a little hard on them at times. Their artificial intelligence features were the same a week ago as they were 2, 3 years ago. Like they have
mhm.
not innovated at a rapid pace. And so a lot of the like there was like 10 different features and there was interesting stuff, but there wasn't anything groundbreaking by any means within what they were doing. And they knew that. And I think they would be the first to probably admit that they, maybe weren't innovating at a very rapid pace on the AI front. I think that's about to change. And so by infusing it in, I mean, let's think about the context here. If you're not familiar with HubSpot, it's as of this morning, a $20.2 billion market cap company. Their total revenue in 2022 was 1.7 billion, up 33% versus 2021 in a down economy. And they grew their customer base to 167,000 customers by the end of 2022, which was up 24% over 2021. So, I mean, this is a very important company in the overall marketing, sales, CRM ecosystem. And for them to go all in again with a co founder, CTO, Dharmesh, doing this and leading the charge, I think that's going to wake a lot of people up to that AI matters and it matters right now. And they better make some moves to figure it out.
Yeah, so maybe talk to us about that a little more on a practical level now that these AI powered capabilities are part of the platform, and presumably we'll see more of them coming down the line as well. What effect will this have on the work that marketers are doing in HubSpot?
Once you understand what it's capable of, and again, just go watch the demo video. If you run sales or involved in sales enablement, or if you're a marketer and you create content or you run reports, whatever, you can go yourself and look at the use cases and think what's going to be possible. Now, again, may not realize like massive productivity increases and efficiency right away, because again, it's an alpha solution, but you can connect the dots and realize, wow, this is going to make a major impact. So I think productivity for HubSpot customers will almost immediately rise once you have access to the tools. And it's just going to keep going up. And I'm not sure that there's a cap on that. So if you, again, like take a practical example of drafting emails or writing blog posts or pulling reports on number of new contacts added last month and how many were in the SaaS industry and all these things that you do all the time, and you can just do that through not only typing it, but he has a voice function in there. So I
Mm.
can just say, how many contacts did we have last month? How much was it over the month prior? How many of them are in the SaaS industry? How many are companies that are 100 million or more in revenue? Like I can just ask these things that historically you all get from Zoom messages from me. Can someone please go into HubSpot and pull for me X, Y, or Z? Now, in theory, I'm going to be able to just pull my HubSpot app while I'm sitting at home and say, hey, how many contacts have we added this month? Like
Mm.
whatever pops in my head. And so the productivity is going to be massive. Now, that said, it's going to be very disruptive. So one, you have to have people who understand this technology and the capabilities. You have to upskill your team to even know what to do with this technology. But at a bigger level, it starts to lead into the ecosystem. So HubSpot is built through a massive ecosystem. And again, you mentioned up front, we were the first HubSpot partner back in 2007. So we were the origin of the partner program that today, last I had heard publicly, again, this is an inside knowledge, like 45% of HubSpot's revenue came through their
Mm.
partner ecosystem. And that includes service providers like marketing agencies and technical providers who build on top of the HubSpot APIs within, the solutions marketplace. So it's a massive part of their business. If I'm an agency right now that gets paid to create content and pull reports and do the things he shows in there, I am I am really starting to wonder what is the future of our service model with HubSpot. Like what is ChatSpot not going to be able to do? Is probably the question I'm asking myself right now. Because you have to start moving your service model to where they're not going to be able to just ask a question and get the thing they used to pay you $1,000 for. And that's where it's going. Now, ChatSpot may not be there, and that's not the intention of what they're trying to do. I mean, knowing HubSpot, they are not trying to obsolete their own service network, but it's a potential byproduct of it, at least in parts. So I think that, and then I think from a technological standpoint, if I'm a developer and I'm building tools into HubSpot, I am starting to wonder what won't HubSpot be able to do on its own with ChatSpot. So I'll give you an example. I'll throw this out there now because it's an obsolete idea.
Hmm.
One of the products I had considered building, so we've played around at different times with building some AI technology, was a CRM writer. I was thinking about building an AI writing tool that had access to CRM and could write anything you want based on the CRM data. You see Microsoft doing this with Viva. They've made a play into this space. And I've thought for a while that HubSpot needed that. And so I was like, maybe we'll build that. Maybe we build like a cool little app that can write based on CRM data. It's done. Like if I had built that product, it would be obsoleted right now, and I would be emailing my investor saying, "Hey, sorry,
Hmm.
Dharmesh just built this into ChatSpot. Like we're done. Thanks for the million we just burned." So I do think there is a very, and again, this leads into our second topic very well. There is a massive amount of uncertainty right now around what should be built and uh, and what the moats are to defend what you build. And I think this is a perfect example that there's a number of tools that I've thought about building on top of HubSpot the last couple of years that I could now see having been obsoleted by this one alpha play. And as Dharmesh shows, he shows his little grid of like this is just the very beginning, and it was a much bigger idea. And knowing Dharmesh and having spent a lot of time with him through the years, personally and professionally, um, Dharmesh is an insanely smart person and a very big thinker who can actually build the stuff he envisions. I would not bet against Dharmesh. Like, as someone who has invested heavily in HubSpot through the years, I am very happy to know that Dharmesh is very focused on AI in HubSpot. I think it will bode very well for the platform and the stock moving forward.
So you bring up a great point there about defensible moats. And as our second topic shows, even the smartest people in the generative AI space are having a hard time figuring this out. So legendary VC firm Andreessen Horowitz, they just published a deep dive into the generative AI market. And it's called Who Owns the Generative AI Platform? So they basically have met with dozens of founders, operators, people who are working directly in generative AI to kind of understand where the value in this market will actually accrue. And they break down the generative AI tech stack into three main categories. First is infrastructure. So think the cloud platforms and the hardware and chips used to host and train models. Then second is the models themselves, these foundational language models like GPT-3 that power generative AI tools. And third are the apps, the actual products like the Jaspers of the world that customers use. And the full post is well worth a read, and we'll link to it in the show notes. But Andreessen's conclusion is essentially as follows. They say that we've observed that infrastructure vendors are likely the biggest winners in this market so far, capturing the majority of dollars flowing through the stack. Application companies are growing top line revenue very quickly, but often struggle with retention, product differentiation, and gross margins. And most model providers, though responsible for the very existence of this market, haven't yet achieved large commercial scale. In other words, the companies creating the most value, i.e., training generative AI models and applying them in new apps, haven't captured most of it. They also strongly note that today they don't appear to see many competitive moats at all in this market. But the market itself is so important to understand because it's so vast. They say, quote, the potential size of this market is hard to grasp, somewhere between all software and all human endeavors. So we expect many, many players and healthy competition at all levels of the stack. Paul, let's start off by talking about what this means specifically for marketers before we dive into the overall market dynamics. So if I'm a marketer, what should I be taking away from this analysis?
Yeah, first of all, I mean, just kudos to the 3 authors of the piece. I think it came out in January. They don't put this drives me nuts. They don't put dates on it, their posts. I actually don't know exactly when it came out, but it came on my radar last week. So it's possible this has been out since, like, late January. But it is a really well-written piece. Like, it does a great job of connecting the dots and explaining some relatively complex concepts. So great job. It is an 18-minute read though. So like if you're in, you're committing to, to going deep on this topic. Um, my first reaction was for marketers and business leaders. The main consideration is at that application level, the software companies that are being built to enable you to do things more efficiently, to be more creative, to improve your decision making, to personalize, whatever it is. The key to me here is like, how in the world are we supposed to bet on the winners? Like,
Mm,
if I'm building my tech stack and I need an AI writing tool at the core of that tech stack, and I go get Jasper or Writer or Hyperwrite or Word Tuner, or I just go direct to OpenAI's APIs and I build my own stuff. Like, it's really, really hard if the VCs who do this for a living can't figure out who the winners are going to be and what their mode is going to be. As a marketer who doesn't spend your entire day analyzing this, how do you figure out which SaaS companies to bet on? And this leads me back to what I was saying at the beginning about the confusion in the marketplace. It's way safer if I'm a marketer to say, I'm just going to bet on HubSpot. Like they are core to my tech stack. It's what we've said for years for people. How do you get started with AI? I have said it over in talks. You and I wrote it in our book. Start with your existing tech stack. The key way to infuse AI in your business right now is go ask your existing core tech companies, do you have smarter features we're not using? Because if the answer is yes, we actually have an AI writing tool baked into our platform, or we have a generative AI tool that creates images in our platform, great. I don't have to go looking for one that I don't know the company behind them. I've been using HubSpot for 7 years. I trust you all to do this right. I'm going to just ride with HubSpot and just see this out. So that to me is the biggest challenge. And like we've been saying, these big tech companies were going to figure it out. It was only a matter of time until the platform companies realized that they needed to be building this technology in. And as soon as they do, it totally shakes up the ecosystem now of, well, who do I go for point solutions? I just need a writing tool, or I just need an email tool, or I just need this. And it's only logical that the platforms are going to build those capabilities in. Now, they might do it through ecosystem partners, but in a case like this, with the innovation happening with ChatGPT and the opening up of that API, which we're going to talk about as the next topic, it just like resets the ecosystem, in my opinion. So that was my first takeaway is that you need to focus on the applications layer, and there is a massive amount of uncertainty in that layer. And then the other thing that jumped out to me is like they just don't know. Like
mm,
they're fairly confident the infrastructure layer where the clouds and the GPUs like NVIDIA, and I've been bullish on NVIDIA for years. Like if anybody's listened to me give talks. Um, and so I think that the infrastructure layer seems really obvious, but that's more of a like personal investing thing. Like if you're a marketer or a CEO, the infrastructure layer doesn't matter that much to you. I mean, other than the cloud you choose to participate in, like whether it's AWS, Microsoft Azure, or Google Cloud. I mean, those are your three main players. So that decision, is something you can affect. But those the things that are being built on GPUs and TPUs from NVIDIA and Google. And
mm.
that's really not something that affects you. So then the next layer up where you're actually getting into the models, that is starting to come into play. Like I've been doing this myself. It's like, well, we have OpenAI's playground, we have Cohere's playground. We can, you have Anthropic, you have Stability AI. Like you have all these people that are now building models, and the question becomes, well, if I wanted to build my own thing, do I just go to those? But again, the most obvious short-term thing you have to solve for as a marketer or business leader is which applications are we using? Which SaaS companies are we partnering with?
Mm.
And I don't think it's very obvious right now.
What about the flip side of this with the vendors themselves? I mean, this market went from us seeing a couple, big giants raising a ton of money and having really unique products to suddenly, oh my gosh, like there's so many more competitors. There's a lack of differentiation. What should the vendors themselves be thinking about?
I think they've been losing sleep over this since ChatGPT came out, honestly.
Mm,
There was toward the end, there was a really succinct kind of conclusion that I thought was very well said, and I'll just kind of read this. So they ask, where will the value accrue? And this gets into like the vendors. It says there don't appear today to be any systematic moats in generative AI. As a first order approximation, applications lack strong product differentiation because they use similar models, aka they're all building on top of Cohere or OpenAI or other language models. Maybe it's a mix. Maybe they're developing their own, but generally they're using the same infrastructure. Applications lack product differentiation because of similar models. Models face unclear long-term differentiation because they are trained on similar data sets with similar architectures, meaning Cohere, OpenAI, the language model companies, they're all largely training on the same data sets. They need proprietary data sets to really differentiate the models and give them, power that they don't have. Otherwise, they're all kind of commoditized. Cloud providers lack deep technical differentiation because they run the same GPUs, which are hard to get. So there's a scarcity of supply in that space. And even the hardware companies manufacture their chips at the same fabs. So it's
Mhm.
just like, this is why there's uncertainties. And the next one I thought was brilliant. There are, of course, the standard moats, scale moats. Quote, I have or can raise more money than you. That's, the play some are making. Supply chain moats. I have the GPUs, you don't. Ecosystem moats. Everyone uses my software already. That could be like a HubSpot play. Like I build these tools and I already have 167,000 customers, so we're gonna win. Distribution moats. I already have a sales team and more customers than you. Data pipeline moats. I've crawled more of the internet than you. But none of these moats tend to be durable over the long term, and it's too early to tell if strong direct network effects are taking hold in any layer of the stack. So that to me is like, again, if I was building CRM Writer and HubSpot just launched ChatSpot, I'm done. Like I had the vision, I had the idea, and that's irrelevant because they have a bigger moat than me in a couple of key areas, and I didn't get there first. And sorry, like good idea, go on to your next one. So that's kind of the space we're in. Is this like massive uncertainty around what is going to happen? Um, in this place. And again, the infrastructure vendors seem like the logical play, but that's not going to help you as a marketer. It doesn't get you anywhere.
So before we move on to our third main topic today, I want to end by talking a bit more. I love that quote in the article about the potential market size where they say it's somewhere between all software and all human endeavors. So if some in our audience might be a little confused by that statement, it makes generative AI sound a lot more than just writing and art tools. And we've talked about this. Can you kind of outline here why generative AI is so much more than just AI assisted writing?
Yeah, we talked in a previous episode about that there won't be software companies that aren't AI powered like
Mm,
in 3 to 5 years. Like my belief, like if we look at the marketing technology landscape, Scott Brinker has that Martech landscape. It's got like 9,700 companies on it. Um, any company that isn't infused with AI within 3 years is done. Like that is, and I've said this publicly to SaaS companies. I've told venture capital firms this that only invest in SaaS companies. Like you have to audit your portfolio. If
mm,
you only invest in SaaS, there has to be someone on that team that deeply understands AI and can build the AI roadmap for that company, or else that investment is going to get burned. So I think that we are in a space where all software will become AI powered software. Like there will be a day in the not too distant future where you don't have a software product or company that isn't an AI company. And I don't even think that's debatable. Like
mm.
I think it is obvious. It's been obvious to some people for years. I think it is now obvious to everyone. All the venture capital firms I've talked to, all the SaaS companies are talking to. ChatGPT woke everyone up to the fact that this was real and it was happening right now. All of human endeavors kind of starts to go more in the realm of the world of bit stuff we talked about and knowledge work and creativity, certainly labor.
Mm.
We didn't put this on the agenda for today. Maybe we'll put it for next week. This company called Fusion that just released, or no, Figure that just released their humanoid robot, the version one, and they talked about every human on Earth having their own robot, like one robot for every human on Earth. And they're talking about it in at home care. They're talking about off world adventures. They're talking about labor and solving for job shortages. Those robots, whether you want them to exist or not, ex machina style robots, um, are powered by AI. They're being made possible by these leaps in AI, language understanding, language generation, computer vision. So yes, like it is as crazy as it sounds to say the potential size of this market is somewhere between all software and all human endeavors. It's not actually crazy when you
Hmm.
understand how this technology works and what it's going to be capable of. So yeah, I mean, it's kind of a funny way to end it. And that's why I said, like, I loved the article. I thought it was written with a little bit of humor,
Yeah.
um, but a lot of understandable facts. And I think it's important for people to read it. If you're building technology or buying technology or leading a company or investing in technology, I think you have to read the article.
It's definitely good to pair that article with the next topic because it just became a lot easier, I think, for a lot of developers and companies to start building these types of applications because developers can now integrate ChatGPT and Whisper, OpenAI's human level speech recognition system, into apps and products through the company's API. Since December, OpenAI says it has reduced the cost of ChatGPT by 90%, savings that API users will now receive when they use the API. So, this makes it much easier and cheaper to incorporate the capabilities of ChatGPT and Whisper into different products, apps, business models. And it doesn't just mean that every business can have their own instance of ChatGPT. It means they can actually use these capabilities to build innovative new products. So, as part of the release, OpenAI provided a few examples, and I just want to run through those quickly so people understand what's possible here. So, one early example is Snap, the creator of Snapchat. They just introduced something called My AI, which is a customizable on platform chatbot that you can speak with like you would a friend or an online acquaintance. And that's built on the ChatGPT API. Instacart is also using the ChatGPT API to pair ChatGPT with its own data so customers can ask open ended natural language questions. So instead of having a recipe in front of you and searching Instacart for what you want to buy from the store, you could literally just ask something like, how do I make great fish tacos? And you can start not only getting an answer, but also having Instacart's products and recommendations come up as part of that. And last but not least, Speak is an AI language learning app, and it's apparently the fastest growing English app in South Korea. And they're using the Whisper API to create an AI speaking companion. So, Paul, what do you think of the effects? What do you think the effects will be of releasing these APIs on the overall market, given everything we just talked about?
Even more rapid innovation. You know, we've been saying for months, like you have no idea what's coming. Like the pace of innovation is going to be hard to comprehend. It just accelerated 10x. Like
Hmm.
that's basically what it did. It reduced the cost 10x to build things on Chat GPT. So for developers and tech companies that are building, it just got way cheaper to build what you were building, which means that as consumers or users of it, you're going to see rapid innovation in what you can now do with this technology. So now you may not personally care, like it might not make sense to you, like that they dropped the 10x, but give you a really practical example. In our piloting AI for marketers course, and in some of the talks I give, I think even our intro to AI class I teach, we show OpenAI Playground where we write a blog post, 440 words that we write in 40 seconds. Most of that
Hmm.
was writing the prompt, and that it cost 1 penny to do. So previously, if you wanted to access the OpenAI APIs to generate something, it was 2 cents for roughly 750 words. Just simple math here. Mm. For 2 cents, you can now write 7,500 words, basically. So so rather than one 750 word post for 2 pennies, I can now write 10 750 word posts for 2 pennies. So if I'm HubSpot and I'm enabling you to write content, it now costs me 10 times less to let you do that than it did a week ago. That that's basically what it comes down to. And what's going to happen is it's going to force the rest of the market to make all of their models more affordable. And it's going to rapidly increase innovation. And I'm like, give tangible examples of innovation, verticalized solutions, like people building things very specific to your industry. If you're in the legal profession or dental or whatever it is, insurance, it's now 10 times cheaper and faster to build verticalized solutions for you. So the tech you use, your core tech stack is going to get smarter. People are going to be launching companies and tools left and right. It's going to be hard to even fathom the amount of innovation that'll be spurred by this technology getting cheaper and faster.
So just to add to that, I saw this tweet a few days ago from Jim Fan, who is an AI researcher at NVIDIA and is a great follow on Twitter. He said that now with the new ChatGPT pricing, it costs $4.30 to process, as in process and entirely learn the entire Harry Potter series. And I think he's done a couple other high profile examples where, like, I think the Bible took
Yeah.
$2. So people really do need to understand, whether you're building on top of this or not, you need to understand that there were a huge amount of critiques around ChatGPT when it first came out, that it was unsustainable from a cost perspective. And a lot of people in the space were pretty clearly saying, well, guys, give it a few months. I guarantee you the cost will drop. The innovation will scale up accordingly. And that's exactly what we're seeing.
Yep. And the models are, again, there's more advanced models sitting behind the walls at these research labs. So when you combine the cost of doing this with more advanced AI capabilities, it's just going to be crazy. Like, I mean, so for our March 30th AI for Writers Summit, I'm doing a state of AI and writing keynote. I'm not even sure I can create that keynote until March 29th. Like, I've been debating, what am I even going to present? And I think I'm going to like create the framework of it, but I'm going to have to finalize that thing like 24 hours before the event because it's moving so quick.
I hope our event team is not listening to
Yeah,
this
don't.
podcast
Could you
today.
give me the deck when?
So before we jump into rapid fire, I want to end with asking you, how should companies, vendors, developers, how should we be thinking about building on top of these APIs? I mean, what kind of considerations do we need to have as we're building our own products?
It goes back to the previous topic of what's defensible. Like,
Mm,
what moat can you create around these things? Because the technology is there to build all kinds of fascinating tools. It's just a question of whether or not those tools will be around in 6 months, or if Salesforce or HubSpot or Adobe or Oracle or, any other list of marketing sales technology companies are just going to build it themselves, because now it's 10 times cheaper for them to build it too. And they have development teams and they have AI research labs. So that to me is it's the billion or $1 trillion question, is
mm.
what gets built and what can you grow? And I think, in my opinion, I haven't thought like deeply about this yet. Well, I've thought very deeply about this, but I haven't really come to conclusions. I think distribution matters. I think your existing audience size is critical. So if you're HubSpot and you have 167,000 customers, that matters. And I think proprietary data matters to train unique models. And so distribution and data, with all else being, we all have access to the same models. We all have access to the same infrastructure, basically. Um, I think those two things matter, which means the big players may get bigger,
Hmm.
and plus they can buy up all the interesting tools. So it may just continue. Like, there's going to be, I think, a period of explosion of tools and companies built in the generative AI space, and then I could see over time a rapid consolidation, because a lot of those tools are just going to get churned out and obsoleted over and over and over again, like every few months. But the best ones are going to rise. The ones that are interesting are the ones that built a media company first. Going to our friends Joe Polizzi and Robert Rose at Content Marketing Institute, have been preaching, build a media company yourself. And
Yep.
that's the play we did with the Institute. It's like,
Yep.
our play was always, let's build an audience of people that are interested in AI and want to learn about this stuff. And then someday maybe, we do something else with it. And so I think distribution matters. I think you might see more software companies buying more media companies again to get access to those people. And I don't know. I mean, I'm not confident enough to make some bets. I've been making bets personally, and from a stock standpoint, but I've been doing that for years. Like, I've
Yeah.
I've believed that AI companies were undervalued in the market. I don't think Wall Street understood AI, and I think that actually is still the case. I think there's still a lot of value in the market for AI companies. Um, but yeah, I would think long and hard about what is defensible before I start building something.
All right, let's jump into several rapid fire topics. Like we said, a lot has been going on in the last week, so we've got a lot to cover, so we'll move fast. First up is the US and the European Union had their first meeting as part of a joint AI research initiative. So This is a collaborative research partnership that's meant to speed up AI development in both the US and Europe, as well as determine what regulations, if any, are needed. So, in this first meeting, the US and EU teams gave the agencies all involved on their ends 60 days to compile guidance on how AI can be ethically applied in different areas. They focused on 5 areas to start. First is extreme weather and climate forecasting, emergency response management, health and medicine improvements, electric grid optimization, and agriculture optimization. So, Paul, I wanted to get your sense of what is the significance of a partnership like this, and does it mean that regulations are coming?
I don't think it means regulations are coming. I think it's important that they are collaborating. Again, the data is what makes things valuable here. And to be able to share data and share learning is going to benefit humanity. So overall, I think it's good. I think it's necessary. I don't necessarily think it has any real implications to regulations being accelerated because of some of the obstacles we've talked about in previous episodes.
Gotcha. And kind of related to that, our second topic is this New York Times article that came out recently highlighting how US lawmakers are struggling to understand artificial intelligence. And that's even despite some of them raising alarm over AI tools like ChatGPT. In this quote from the Times, they say, but even as lawmakers put a spotlight on the technology, few are taking action on it. No bill has been proposed to protect individuals or thwart the development of AI's potentially dangerous aspects. And they go on to quote a congressman from California who said, the problem is that most lawmakers do not even know what AI is. And this is from Jay Obernolte, if I'm pronouncing that right, who is the only member of Congress with a master's degree in AI. So, Paul, you called this out on LinkedIn and highlighted what I thought were 2 really important points. The first being, you said, by the way, you can replace lawmakers with CEOs, and we face the same issues in business. The lack of understanding begets a lack of urgency to pursue AI responsibly. You also mentioned that Cade Metz, a New York Times AI reporter and a friend of the Institute, confirmed for you on Twitter that this is the first time that the New York Times is reporting that OpenAI CEO Sam Altman actually did a demo of GPT-4 for Congress. So, can you tell us a bit more about why this article and the topic caught your attention?
Yeah, it goes back to what we talked about in the previous one. Like, we're not any closer to legal regulations because nobody understands AI.
Mm,
And that is the fundamental problem I have seen over and over again in business is you have CEOs and boards and venture capitalists driving some of this who don't understand AI. And so we've said over and over and over again that understanding is critical. We have to start there. Like trying ChatGPT and finding AI writing use cases is fantastic. But leadership has to actually understand the technology that they're using because it's going to be infused throughout your business. This is not a simple marketing tool or two. It's marketing, sales, service, ops, product, HR, finance, legal, IT. Like it is going to be in every part of your business. So that was the first thing that jumped out to me is one, shows we're not getting any closer to any kind of legal regulations here, governmental guidelines. Two, it is representative of where we are in business. And three, buried at the bottom of that article from, I think I said it was Kay, but it was Cecilia Kang and Adam Sattarino, um, was that Sam Altman demoed GPT-4. Now, we knew Sam Altman had met with Congress. That came out a few weeks ago, but I had not seen anything where they said he did GPT-4, which is basically, I assume then meaning that they are worried about what comes next. And he was probably there trying to like say, hey, here's what it is. Here's the guardrails we're putting in place. We won't release it. It actually puts in context some of the other stuff they've been doing that we felt was a PR move
yeah.
recently about AGI and stuff like that. I feel like maybe there's a lot of pressure on them from government to take some immediate actions to prevent misuse and damage in society. And so it feels like they're playing a bit of a PR game and a bit of a product game here.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought that was interesting. It was overall a really good article, and a lot of things about it caught my attention.
So you alluded to our third
Oh
topic
yeah,
here,
figure. Here
which
we go.
is this is really crazy, and it's going to sound futuristic to people, but I would personally start taking it pretty seriously given what we've discussed. But a major startup exited stealth mode, saying it is ready to build autonomous humanoid robots. So on Twitter, entrepreneur Brett Adcock announced that his new company called Figure was exiting stealth mode, and they're building this autonomous humanoid robot called, the first model is called the Figure 01. And in the announcement, he said, quote, "Today we're unveiling the most important technology for the future of humankind. Advanced AI meets robotics." Figure is designed to solve what they see as this huge problem. So Adcock says that as a result of an aging population, our labor force is shrinking. And he cites a stat that claims there will be 85 million job shortages by 2030. He goes on to say, if we want growth, we need more productivity. And this means more automation. So the solution is Figure believes robots built for a human environment will maximize our impact on labor shortages and improve lives. And kind of the core thesis here is that the physical world is already designed for human forms. So it makes humanoid robots kind of a natural choice to navigate the world. This isn't a new goal or a new realization, but Adcock does think this time is different due to some enormous advances over the last 10 years in things like compute and GPU, energy and power density, bipedal locomotion control, and autonomy. He actually showed some mock-ups of the robot as well. It's 5 feet 6 inches tall. It's a humanoid robot with a human form and a screen for a face. And, lastly and importantly, the team they've assembled has some really heavy hitters. They've got people that used to work at Boston Dynamics, Tesla, Apple, and Google X. What did you make of this company and kind of the overall mission and challenge they're trying to solve here?
I mean, it definitely comes across as like overly sci-fi at first. And if I didn't look into like the people behind it, I would have kind of dismissed it a little bit.
Yeah.
But when you combine that, how much money they've raised, I was just trying to find, I think they've raised over 1 billion already. Like, I mean, they're backed by some major players.
Hmm.
And the fact that this is the exact market it would appear that Elon Musk is planning to go after with Tesla Bot, aka Optimus, it certainly adds legitimacy to some major players think that this is going to be a massive market. And I think that was kind of what I threw up when I put some commentary on LinkedIn about this was they're all going after the same obvious markets, the labor force, the consumer household, dealing with aging population, exploration. I've said before, I don't know if I said on this podcast, but I don't think a human's the first thing on Mars. I'm pretty confident that Optimus is intended to be the first thing that goes to Mars from a humanoid standpoint. So I think that this is a space there's going to be a lot of speculative investments made into. Robotics has been kind of quietly behind the scenes for most people developing, like Boston Dynamics. We see all the crazy robots doing the fun things on YouTube,
Hmm.
but this is real tech. The government's been working on this stuff through the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, for decades. This isn't new. And I think that's for many people might be the first time they look at something like, oh my gosh, they're actually building the stuff from the movies. Yes, they are, and they have been for decades. I think we might be nearing the commercialization of that technology though in the next 5 to 10 years. So something to keep an eye on. It's not gonna you're not be buying robots tomorrow to take care of your parents, your aging parents, but uh, it would certainly appear that within this decade we may see some humanoid robots walking around.
Wow. Yeah. What a world.
Yeah, I ended it with like, anyways, have a great weekend. I
Yeah.
think that put
Right.
that up on Friday. It was just sort of like,
Yeah.
wow, this is deep.
As if you didn't have enough to think about starting your week, too.
Yeah.
All right. Our last topic for today is courtesy of Wired magazine. So, Wired is a major tech publication, and they just published their own ground rules for how they will and won't use generative AI moving forward. So, they break down these rules by different types of generative AI. So, for things like text generators, they say they will not publish stories with text generated by AI except when the fact that a story is AI generated is the whole point of the story. So literally no AI generated content outside of writing like a think piece on, hey, this article was written by ChatGPT. They also will not publish text edited by AI. They say they may use AI to suggest headlines or text for social media. They may use it to generate story ideas, and they may experiment with it as a research tool. For image generators, they say they will not publish AI generated images or video. They do say that this will be in effect at least until the legal issues around artist and photographer copyright is settled. So it's possible they'll leave the door.
Indefinitely.
Right. In theory, they would be open to it, but yeah, indefinitely in practice. They specifically will not use AI generated images over stock photography, stating that stock photography is an important source of income for photographers, and they may use AI to generate ideas for images. So we're seeing this more and more companies and brands taking public positions on how they're going to use AI tools. What do you make of this announcement and the guidelines themselves?
Uh, I love that they are being proactive. I hope we see a lot more media companies do this exact same thing. That's just very clear. We've talked about it before. You don't necessarily you don't want to be like reading every article and wondering, did AI write this? Like, what did you don't know. I've been a belief like I don't think you're going to have to disclaim it on every post, like stamping that this was an AI or not an AI. I
Yeah.
hate that idea. I do like the idea of just a terms of use or like, here's how we use AI, click here to learn more. And then that is just like a standard statement. So I really like the idea of this standard statement. Um, I am actually a fan. You and I haven't even talked about this before, but I am a fan of a anti AI generated um, content guideline. Like
Yeah.
I actually, we've been pretty clear to date on ours. We use it to do transcriptions, and we're transparent. Like we transcribe audio. I don't have any problem with that. I think that is a very natural use case that you just otherwise wouldn't otherwise do. And I think it is user centric. It's to give the transcript. We're not going to sit there and type it out. Um, we use it for content summarization of
Yep.
transcripts. Again, very clear use case. I don't really have a problem with that. But I know we're going to get flooded with crap content. We talked about this in an episode or two ago about the need for more human content. So I don't hate media companies and brands taking a stance that we're not using AI generated content. Like I really don't. I think that there may be a movement toward that, honestly. The one about not published text edited by AI is very aggressive in my opinion.
Yeah.
I don't get that one. I would be interested to hear more perspective on that. Because does that mean they won't even use Grammarly or Microsoft Word that has AI doing NLP on your like that's really extreme in my opinion.
Mm.
I wouldn't agree with that one, and nor would I endorse our company doing that. Um, the image generation one I respect. I think that there is a spectrum of how you feel about the impact AI is having on artists, whether they're photographers or illustrators or designers or whatever, and whether or not their work is being stolen in the training of these image generation tools.
Mm.
There is certainly an argument that it is. Um, I don't think we're going to have any legal precedent for a time, that at least that's sustainable, like Supreme Court ruling kind of precedent. So I think that's a very aggressive stance as well. I don't have a problem with using AI generated images, especially if we're clear that that's what it is. But I could certainly listen to an argument that we should consider that stance down the road. So I think that those key areas of like, how are we using it for writing? How are we using it for editing? How are we using it for image generation and video? They didn't get into video, but that's going to be something you're going to have to address in 2023. Are we going to use it
Right.
for video generation? I'm guessing they will say no. I do think that heads of marketing and businesses should be taking a stand on this. And I think that to me is the main takeaway is it's a really good model. We released our responsible AI manifesto to try and accelerate the conversation around some of these issues in the industry. And I like that they're doing this. And I think people should start pondering what their stance should be on these issues.
Yeah, and we should also mention it's not just kind of a nice to have a stance. It's kind of a need to have in the sense of actually figuring out how you're going to treat these tools and avoid potential pitfalls down the line, whatever those look like to you. But also, like you mentioned, differentiating your brand. I mean, you can't just sit here as a credible content strategy today and say, great, ChatGPT can write everything for us. Like they can do it for anybody.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, I'm interested to see what I say on March 30th for our writers summit. I don't know what I'm going to say. Like there's some issues that I haven't personally resolved in my mind yet, like how I really feel about some of this stuff and, taking a stance. I think so much of ours is presenting information in both sides and sometimes not having a very specific point of view because in part it just hasn't been formed yet. It's not like I'm trying to avoid saying this is what I believe.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of unknowns right now, in particular in writing and the impact it's going to have. And it's just a really fascinating time to be having these conversations.
And with the amount of topics we've covered today, we have to keep having the conversations because, man, there's a lot going on. So,
Seriously.
Paul, as always, thank you so much for breaking everything down for us and for the audience. I think it's incredibly valuable.
Yeah, we appreciate everyone listening. We'll be back next week. So we'll talk to you then. Thanks a lot. Thanks for listening to the Marketing AI Show. If you like what you heard, you can subscribe on your favorite podcast app. And if you're ready to continue your learning, head over to marketingaiinstitute.com. Be sure to subscribe to our weekly newsletter, check out our free monthly webinars, and explore dozens of online courses and professional certifications. Until next time, stay curious and explore AI.